And welcome to another episode of Comics That Influence. How you doing, Jake?
Good. Welcome everybody to another episode where we're going to do some flip throughs. Sometimes we flip through stuff that we're recommending, and sometimes it's stuff that we're not recommending, and sometimes it's stuff that we're just seeing for the first time. So that's what I'm going to be going through right here. When we last left off last week, um, I was here, and this was a 10 pack of comics that I bought at the mall, sight unseen, in one of those multi grab bag packs for $5.99. And I opened up the last one. It was a bunch of Image comics mostly. Um, but let's see what we got this time. All right. And so this one you could tell right from the cover that it's about jazz. Looks like some kind of New Orleans thing. It mentions Basin Street. So this looks like a biographical comic. It's a perfect bound, and you can see the spine. This really bothers me because it's perfect bound, but it's also really thin. You're going to get this like crack as soon as you open it. So you have to choose: is this going to be an unopened, untouched copy, or am I going to start bending the damn thing?
Well, that's why you buy two copies.
Right, right. But I got this in a grab bag. So this is Kyle Higgins, Joe Clark, and Danilo Bayruth with Monty and Otsmane El Hal. Sounds like some exotic names, and it looks like good art. They're going through this kind of like jazz thing, and I don't know if this is. I guess there's no name here, so this isn't like the biography of the famous jazz person. This is like just a jazz story. Deep cuts, words by Higgins, and pencils and inks Danilo Bayruth. Cover artist Chris Brunner. I wonder if that's Frank Brunner's kid. And I don't know. This is definitely not my thing, but the art is nice. And would I read the story? Sure, I'll read it. I'll sit down and read it. I don't like this thing being cracked. But this is a $6 comic, brand new on the shelves that I ended up buying for 60 cents in a grab bag. Next, the Silver Coin. Now I've had these before, um, and this is an anthology that always revolves. So this is a horror anthology that spans through the decades, and it always revolves around this silver coin. As a matter of fact, I think I had this exact issue before, but a different cover because I read this story. And this is pretty decent quality sci-fi. This kind of like if for your heavy metal fans. The art's not bad, the stories are okay, but then it just kind of ends, and you're just in a floppy, right? So this goes on and on with this silver coin. Unfortunately, I had this one already. I just had a different variant cover. So I got ripped on that one. Here's Creed, the next round. So here we go. We're out of Image, and we're in Boom Studios. We see Michael B. Jordan here, and this is a tie-in to the Creed movies in theaters now, or in theaters whenever, forever. And this is the daughter of Apollo Creed, or maybe granddaughter of Apollo Creed. And so this is good work for an artist if you get hired on some kind of tie-in like this. You can make your name, and you can get, hopefully they're getting a decent page rate. There's not going to be any royalties for, owning a character. You're just like a hired hand. But, you're being put out here by one of the big indie creator, Boom Studios. They have tie-ins with a lot of, when we get to the ads in the back, we'll see a lot of the different tie-ins so people can understand. There's some good action here. There's some boxing stuff. There's a lot of talking and sitting around here, which I don't like, but there's decent backgrounds in everything here. And then we're here into the ads. So a behind the scenes look at Mech Cadets coming to Netflix, adapting the first 12 issues of Mech Cadets from Boom Studios, coming in August 2023. So I guess this is already out on Netflix if we go look for Mech Cadets. But it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-page promotional infomercial, 7-page, 8-page for a
Well, then the
Netflix.
comic book gets written off as advertisement. You don't have to.
Right.
You get all them as whoever Boom Studios is, or Netflix themselves. They write that entire thing off.
Right. This is a loss leader. We're going to put out our Creed comics. We're going to pay for it. And every comic that comes out this month probably has this infomercial in the back about Mech Cadet. I'm going to check it out. I'm not too hopeful. This looks like Rom the Space Knight. This looks a little
I
bit.
thought the same thing. Yeah.
But here you have some better designs. And who knows what you're going to see when you actually tune in. I'm going to talk to Kurt next week about something that I saw that's 3D animated on Netflix. So there could be some good stuff on there. So now we're back here with Image, but also with GN and also with this, whatever these logos are. So there's 3 different producers here. Creepshow is a big tie-in to a movie franchise that's been in the theaters for decades, on and off. And here's an anthology. We're going to see The Man with No Eyes and then Keep It Down by Abigail Larson, artist and colorist. Is that a daughter of Eric Larson? Or Larson? I know Larson's a very common name. Michael Walsh, writer, artist, and colorist. So Creepshow. So this is horror comics, and it's not going to be good unless you read it from the beginning. But here's some nice artwork here in the backup feature. And again, it starts here. I like this artist here better. It's very kind of smooth. This is Abigail Larson. What's up with Abigail Larson? So this is her art here. Very creepy. A little manga-ish, a little reminiscent of Aeon Flux. And then look, she's literally cutting off her freaking ear. That is gross, man. What the hell? Where is this going? Is this like a Van Gogh type thing? A demon is here. So that's Creepshow. Next. What's this? So this is a virgin cover. And on the back it says, this is Brainstormers, a ballad of love and murder. First blush, it looks like some kind of Rocketeer era thing where you got the biplanes. And looking inside, it looks like some weird kind of Photoshop artist that uses maybe like realistic photo refs and then some filters and stuff. I don't know. They have a pretty good uniform look. I mean, it's kind of like this painted quality, but it's also got this just kind of Photoshop quality to me. These word balloons look just like a font, computer font. We're getting here into the action. It's a thick book. I think it says 62 pages. Really thick book here. So I'll just flip through to give people a taste. This looks just like the Rocketeer to me. And they're flying in planes. Oh boy. We're doing some undressing here. The Pinkertons. So yeah, this is a I don't know, it looks like a pretty good offering. Written by Scott Snyder, art by Tula Lote, colors by D. Kunifi or Kunif. So this is a separate colorist, which means this is quite a collaboration. And I don't know how many of these they end up selling, how they get off the ground. This is Dark Horse Comics. And this is a Comixology original, $5.99, A Ballad of Love and Murder, Barnstormers. Maybe I shouldn't turn my nose up at this. Maybe I should give it a more careful read. Next, Vault Comics. This is nice. I like to see some Vault Comics mixed in. Beyond Real by Kaplan, Mascolo, and Fezjula. It looks like the artists were Fabiano Mascolo and Tony Fezjula. The writer, Zach Kaplan. And then they have 2 colorists, including Tony Fezjula, and a letterer. And this looks like No, issue number 1, we start out on a highway or a scenic overlook, and there's some people talking, and then they're talking some more, and now we're talking a little bit and driving a little bit, and then we're going to be in a car wreck. So some action happens. Now we're in hospital beds and all this kind of crazy stuff happening. Yeah, so this is par for the course for Vault Comics. It reminds me a lot of Image Comics. Good production values, decent art. The storytelling's pretty professional. It's fine. I just don't know if I would get into the story. There's a lot that happened here. She looks like she's going into a computer world. She's like in the computer, like Tron or something. And then it says to be continued. Unauthorized corruption detected. So I don't know if we really get invested into the characters in this. This just looks like a comic. I don't know. I can't tell from just a quick flip through. But let's look at these ads, shall we? So Vault Comics is advertising Mindset from the same writer, Zach Kaplan. All right, so you could complete control can be yours. Is this like an AI thing? Then we get Deathstalker, which is Terry Russell Slash. Oh, this is the Slash thing. Remember, Slash bought this.
Yeah, it was a Kickstarter. Yeah, it was a Kickstarter, and
right. I guess I should go back and date this. I just assume this stuff is off the stands new, but this is December 2023, so about a year old. The Autumnal, the complete series, truly masterful according to Sci-Fi Wire, lingers in your mind far after you close the book. I have no idea what this is about, but Vault is promoting their Vault properties. And Shadow Service, and somebody with motorcycles here. They're doing the skid stop that we saw. Next issue, this is some artwork plugging the next issue, and then we're out. So that's Beyond Real. And all of these are just kind of flying by my radar here. There's nothing really sticking out.
Hey, Jake?
Yep.
Jake?
Yep.
Do you have tabs open in your browser?
No.
You got nothing in there? Because your audio is just, I can't hear. I hear every other syllable. And I don't know. I have my camera off. We're at 99% upload. I mean, it's just super weird. I don't know if it must be me, but I don't know what the hell it is. I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to, what?
Yeah, mine says 99% uploaded right now.
Yeah. I'm going to go to speaker just to see. So hold on a second. I'm going to change my, let's see. Where is my, I don't want headsets. Where's the...
Last week we came across some interesting stuff here. Talking about the Slash tie-in, some of these famous creators that are getting involved. Last week it was Mother of Madness with Image Comics that was Emilia Clarke was one of the creators on. So you never know if somebody with a big name, famous name is going to get involved in this kind of stuff. Are we good? I don't know. You want me to keep talking? So I got 2 issues of Draculina here. I guess this is pretty valuable eye candy for some people.
Yeah, go ahead. I just
right.
fiddled around with something right now.
So just flipping through, I got Dynamite Comics has Draculina 3 and 4. Draculina is kind of like a takeoff on Vampirella, but I'm not sure who owns it and who came up with the first one. Let's see if it has a little disclaimer here. Because Dynamite and Boom are these companies that try to do a lot of different tie-ins. This says Christopher Priest is the writer and Michael Saint Maria is the artist. Pretty nice art. Really good art, actually. On Draculina number 3. A lot of ads here for Vampirella. So Dynamite is doing Vampirella and Draculina. She is unloose. She's unleashed. Here she is in somebody's mansion. There's some demon guy. So yeah, Draculina comics. The paper's really thin, I noticed. Here's a lot of double page ads here. Red Sonja, and no, this is not Red Sonja. This is Red Sitha.
Oh, gotcha.
A variant of Red Sonja. Well, this is like a subplot or something. I don't know who Red Sitha is. Anyway, back to Draculina. So yeah, some Draculina comics here. I'm flipping through, showing people what you could be getting in your grab bags. This looks like a really good artist. I want to plug this artist, Michael Saint Maria. So I guess, they're having fun doing Draculina comics for Dynamite. This came out in 2021. So I guess this was sitting on the shelf for a while before they put them in grab bags. Here's Draculina number 4, the very next episode. And it's glossy paper, but the paper is also very thin. So this is like kind of minimal. Now they have a suicide and crisis lifeline plug. So this must be like a disclaimer. Maybe they got a complaint about somebody. Hey, what's your Draculina comics are making my kid contemplate suicide. So they have the suicide prevention helpline in here, but same artist, good artists. Not a lot of action. Need a little more action. Tons and tons of ads, double page ads, which come in and interrupt everything. Here's Sheena of the Jungle, Queen of the Jungle, coming to Dynamite Comics. So this is again probably 2021 or 2022. It looks like Draculina is kind of like a superhero that flies. This doesn't look like so much of a horror comic as maybe like a superhero fantasy comic. We have a plane coming in for a landing with some more Vampirella ads and more Red Sonja ads. So every time we take a page forward, we take 2 steps back with these ads. We got cosplay covers. A lot of the same artists here. Christopher Priest is also writing Vampirella and Draculina. I don't know if they're just hacking this stuff out. Oh, here's guest appearance by Vampirella and Draculina together. I don't know. And these comics are just... It just seems like just, disposable stuff. It's just filled with ads. The stories, they don't seem to go anywhere visually. I'm kind of down on it. Next issue. Draculina number 5. I mean, the ads are nice to look at. Here's Vampirella versus Red Sonja. So there's got to be some time travel there. And then here's Fire and Ice, which I bought. And this was really good. Written by Bill Willingham. Covers by Joseph Michael Linsner. That's a name, And some other ads. Here's Betty Page, number 4, coming out. And I flipped through some of these so you don't have to. They're very tame comics, and somehow they got the ability to use the name Betty Page in the comics. Here's your Draculina cover gallery, including your cosplay covers. So this is where we're at, man. You're getting these kind of like disposable cheesecake comics from Dynamite. They have tons of tie-ins. They have some pretty big names: Garth Ennis, Kevin Smith, uh, et cetera, et cetera. But just kind of like I call it disposable. It's like you flip through it, you don't really spend too much time thinking about it. Lots of scantily clad chicks and lots of tie-ins. So I don't know if I should be happy or sad. I could probably sell these for at least what I got them. Here is a Star Trek comic, Picard's Academy. So it sounds like they're maybe doing the Professor X thing. These are IDW comics, which is a pretty big, small print company. IDW, they have another big tie-in. What are we seeing? Tie-ins. We're seeing tie-ins with Vampirella, Draculina. We're seeing tie-ins with Creepshow, tie-ins with Apollo Creed, tie-ins, tie-ins, tie-ins. So maybe that's the way to go is tie-ins. I'm not a big fan of Star Trek, and especially not the later years. This looks pretty cartoony, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. For folks that want a sneak peek inside, this is what Star Trek Picard's Academy #5 looks like. And finally, Crashdown. So I am going to get back to this Conan tie-in before we're done here, because I did make that the cover, and I don't want to show that and not flip through it. We are going to do this last, but next to last, we're going to talk about Crashdown. This is Massive Publishing, which is the Whatnot related company. We have art by Ben Templesmith and written by Comic Tom Garcia and Ryan Sargent. And this is a little bit cartoony for me. A lot of black paid panel borders and everything. Somebody has a wound here. It's growing. It's kind of creepy. Not my type of comics. A lot of faces just sitting around, standing around, talking. They're all kind of like frontal. Well, here she's turned to the side a little bit, but drawing frontal faces over and over and over. It's not my idea of a great comic. They do have some kind of like glowing luminescence here, but to me, the cover is the cool kind of art that I like, and then this is kind of cartoony art that I don't really like. Maybe, yeah, for all I know, the story is fantabulous, might be the greatest story ever. I wouldn't know. All I see is just flipping through a lot of pages of people standing around talking. So I would consider this a disappointment. And let's get down to the last one. This one was not in the grab bag. I just put that on there to kind of sweeten the deal so that I could have a good title card. And this one I picked up in the comic stores, I guess when I was in Florida, along with these other ones that I'm going to put away for another time. But let's at least follow through with Valeria. Now, Valeria is an ongoing character in Conan, right?
Yes.
Right. They're drawing her kind of skinny here. She looks kind of like a swashbuckler.
She is.
Okay, right. Yeah, wasn't she in a twosome with that other lady?
Belay?
Yes. Is that right?
I mean, I'm going back to like origin stories, like the actual Robert E. Howard stories, and
Right.
Valeria was basically a companion to Conan on campaigns, like mercenary campaigns. But she does derive characteristically from that. But I'm sure Dynamite has, or some publisher has put the two of them in bed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would not surprise me.
Yeah, so, I think it was.
What year is this? What year is
this comes out 2019. So this was not from the comic store. This was from the dollar boxes down in Florida. I like this background. I like how they muted these mountains and this backgrounds. I like that. It's not really fighting too much. Frames are up. Valeria. So she's not public domain then, but I did
see. One of the things people have to stop saying this is in the public domain, because like
Ooh.
there's aspects to what it is that does fall into the public domain, but things that come later in development of said character IP that has not. So for instance, like Conan in question, and disclaimer, I am not an attorney and not giving legal advice, but the pulps are in, those stories are in the public domain, but the characters themselves, it's a very iffy place because Conan International is a very ferocious company. And if you start trickling yourself out there and making a name around your version, they're going to come after you. Because then there's loopholes that come into that. But if you wanted to do a swashbuckling sword and sorcery character named Valeria, I don't think people are going to, companies aren't going to give you any kind of grief, especially if you don't have any, monetary thing. But,
Right.
I don't want us to be there's a lot of channels that are out there right now because it's the beginning of the year and a whole bunch of stuff has fallen into public domain. But the disclaimer is only critical aspects made, I believe it's 1929. But if things were made of that character in 1930, it's not in the public domain. So be very weary, people, of like getting excited about jumping on characters that fall into the public domain. It's a very misleading
I'm just wondering
thing,
here
so.
because Marvel is putting out Valeria number 1, chapter 1, Child of War. It's on the Age of Conan, so they do have the permission.
Conan International Properties is propagating and holding the copyright to it. That's what
so Valeria. Valeria, it says right here, Valeria from the Conan universe is not public domain, and it is under the control of the Robert E. Howard estate. But there is Valeria from before that, which was Valeria of the Catacombs, which goes back to the early days of Christianity, a story widely available on platforms like Project Gutenberg, which is public domain. So Valeria, the swashbuckling sword maiden, is not public domain. So this is nice comic art here. I like this. Kind of realistic, kind of like traditional cartoon, trying to kind of like traditional comic booky. The colors are a little muted. It's a little bit of a kind of like this modern palette that you see a lot.
Candy corn.
Right. Here, a little bit sitting around for me here. When are we heading off into action? They make the deal here in Aquilonia, but now here we're back into some, I guess, sepia tone flashbacks. The action is what's missing here, and it's a perfectly capable artist. We're getting here finally some action, some sword play. It looks like we got a little rushed. If you go from this first spread here to this last spread here, this next spread here with these big kind of splash panels, looks like a little stiffer, a little less modeled. Still pretty good quality. I mean, I like the overall look and feel of the book. I just wish the story had a little more action to it. Maybe they're, just setting something up to be continued. Here's a whole page of text with Thoth Amon, part 1. So they're doing kind of like look at this. Page 1, page 2, page 3. So you can just read and read and read blocks, pages of text. And
some people might.
I mean, guys, if you're considering doing that, like, I love the idea of giving something to chew on, especially if you're into sword and sorcery, Conan, whatever. You might get somebody into reading this, but for God's sakes, break it up. Like, put a little illustration here, put a little illustration here. Like, move things along in blocks of text, and don't use Times New Roman.
Garamond, please. Garamond, please.
Right, something. So here's Age of Colan Valeria #2 coming out next month. Here's a plug for Axe body spray. This probably gives them thousands of dollars to help offset their publishing costs.
Right.
And here's like a little cartoon on the back cover. The Avengers are plugging something called Obsession, whatever the hell this is. Oh, it's a record. Wow. So it's Joywave, new album, Obsession, and they kind of infomercialed it into an Avengers one-pager. You don't see that very often. Right here on the back cover of a random comic. In
Well, it's a
2019.
Marvel comic.
Yeah, 2019. But
Remember the Twinkie? Remember the Twinkie comics in Marvel?
yeah, Hostess.
Yeah.
Had a whole like long campaign that they were doing.
Yeah.
Hulk and Spider-Man. So but now it's like, not a big sponsor. I mean, Axe is a pretty big sponsor, but this is Joywave. Like, they're just a band, and they have their new album out on an actual record, and they're showing the cover of it here. Captain America's listening to it. And I don't know, this is kind of cool, one time in 1968, I was flipping through this old Marvel comic. I don't know if it was Spider-Man or something. I had like a chewed up reader's copy, and you're just flipping through the pages, and you see a full page ad for Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention in 1968. He was plugging his latest album. They had some insane artwork, psychedelic artwork. And it was like, what is that doing here? Look, here's Geico. So, if you're gonna put in these ads, I mean, this ad is really a cop out. There's no comics here. They're putting a superhero cape on the freaking lizard. Save 15% or more, get a quote. This is noise pollution, brain pollution to me. But it helps Marvel, pay their people. So, this was an interesting pickup. Valeria #1, good condition. Age of Conan. I don't know what happened with the series. This is a bonus digital edition. Details inside. I don't know if there's some kind of key or whatever that unlocks it. But Conan created by Robert E. Harris. So that was nicer than some of the other stuff in this grab bag. And just to review, we had Crashdown, Star Trek Picard's Academy, Draculina #4 and 3. We saw Vault Comics Beyond Real. Some of the stuff got thumbs down from old Jakey Boy. This is Barnstormers from Dark Horse. This looks like a pretty good, substantial comic for $5.99. Creepshow tie-in. Creed tie-in. These look like they were alphabetical. People were just grabbing these off the C rack, right? And the Silver Coin. So and finally Deep Cuts, which is another mini graphic novel here. That is my report, and I'm going to say for 3 out of 10. Out of 10, I'll give this a 3. So Geraldo's vault came up empty, nothing to see, nothing from Dillinger sitting in there.
All right. Well, last episode I had mentioned Pat Boyette. I actually showed off Pat Boyette comic, and I had also said that this was on its way. You had made a reference to it because you had jumped online and you were just sort of looking up Pat Boyette and everything.
I found I found one of his Archie characters that is long out of print, and it was kind of like I don't want to say sci-fi. It was fantasy characters and stuff. It looked real interesting. We definitely got into we definitely got intrigued in Pat Boyette last week. So what do you got?
Yeah, well, one of the things is that there's most of the comics I get are attached to two reasonings. One is the artist is I'm very connected to it, so I want more and I want to say. But the second thing is that there's basically nothing online about it. I mean, this thing shows up over and over again. I found this copy. It sat in my eBay shopping cart for a month and a half, and it's $7.29. And so with some Santa Claus money, I pulled the trigger on it, and I have to just say, I am so happy I got this. There was no interior pictures, and I totally was thinking this was going to be shitty digital coloring, and I am absolutely in the, like, it's all black and white. It's all black and white. These are black and white originals. Huh? These are reprints. This is reprints.
Of Pat Boyette's earlier works, and try to give us the years when these things first came out.
Well, this is from a company that's it's called Vanguard Press, which David Spurlock, who is really next to Ellie Frazetta, David is very close to being the reason why there is so much population and popularity in Frank Frazetta's work out there. So there's a lot of the original sort of art books and a lot of the stuff that was coming out in the 90s was all from Vanguard. So this is a 2003 publication, and the art, I believe I read, is David's from David's collection. So these are pieces that he had picked up. So these are scans that are making it, like, once again, none of this was on the internet anywhere. And so I'm a Pat Boyette mark. He's like top 5 for me in all sincerity when it comes to comic book making, and storytelling. I just love the clean directness and the unique vision he has to his characters and stuff. So there's an introduction by Alex Roth. I did know that, so that was also a help to pull there's actually a Pat Boyette interview. There's a portfolio in here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 stories. The second one is top 10 favorite comic book story of all time, and we'll get to it in just a second. But
I'm just finding the preferences here. Play sound effects. I think that should be the last one.
So this here alone, I wish they didn't do this kind of crap over here. It's not that terrible. They should have had more of a masthead for Alex Toth here. But Alex Toth is known for writing, handwriting responses and letters to people. And they published his introduction to Pat Boyette. I have not read it. I know it's going to be like, Pat's one of my favorites, and I knew him when, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, and this little doodle down here and everything. I love this. I mean, this is the kind of stuff people need to start doing in their work. They need to take time, like you said about that whole 3 pages of story. Why shit on that story without giving it 3 little pencil doodles that you could pay somebody probably $35 for, and then get a better font for it, and really deliver something that makes somebody sit down and go, shit, I'm going to read this. You know what I mean? Like, this is looking good. But here, this is now, the number one critique I have of this is I wish they just made this into an 8.5 by 11 comic. You know what I mean? Like a picture book. Like I do with Crumb the Barbarian. You know what I mean? There's just such a breath that comes along with it. So that is something that is just super picky on my part. I'm getting more and more tired of comic book size. And it just not being treated. It's just not treating the storytelling with, I think, the amount of respect you can, in giving it like a bigger thing. But Carrion of the Gods is one of my favorite comic book stories. It's in Macabre. It's a Skywald, I believe, magazine that was trying to compete with Eerie and all the other black and white magazines, making it to the newsstands in the 70s, late 70s. It was issue number 2, Macabre. I'm actually trying to get a hold of that magazine copy of it. I think there was only 2 issues of it. But I remember coming across this. It might have been online. It might have been it might have been a reprint of this before. I can't remember. I just think this is and for me, and I think others need to use this type of story as a template for making fantastic / bunker comics. It's got like history, it's got like tie-ins to aliens, and it has all like genetics and everything. And I think it's only like 10 pages long. I do have one little critique. Oh, this was the thing. This is like, once again, he took the time to do this in a black and white art plate in order for it to come to, and it was printed black and white too, by the way. It was never color. So that was, like I said, I was worried that this was going to come, they were going to do some shitty coloring on it. They didn't do it. But here's the real like criticism of a lot of comics that were made, and paid for, I guess, whatever. But the ending is second to the last panel, you get this. And then you have this last panel, which is just 2 guys standing in a pyramid, basically, supposedly having talked about all this stuff. It needs like a whole nother page. And so I actually want to try to make a treatment for this, and then track down the owners. There is supposedly an estate of Pat Boyette, but there's nothing else. I'll just have to contact David Spurlock and Vanguard to kind of get more into it.
Yeah.
But I've got so many ideas of just another additional, like replace this and expand it into an old page. And this story, in my opinion, will be perfect.
Yeah, a lot of times when that very last panel, when you have an awkward ending, things just have to wrap up quick, and they just
page count.
Yeah, they're.
I can't pay another page. I can't pay you for another page.
Right, we're out of space. Let's just end it there. I mean, you could even see in the Fantastic Four, in the early days, they were just like, Stan said, all right, I got the art back. I got to put the word balloons in. Let's just put, we'll have to just kick that, for next time, like end it there. Like, we're done.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's nice when these things are thought out a little bit better, but,
here's a Steranko. Outline of a Mystery Man by Steranko. So he has some, man, this is going to be a really nice sit down to go through. I am so happy I got a hold of this. And the reproduction is really well done. I can see and notice something where, he's using probably ink washes to build up his value system, but there's like some funkiness. It's almost like a Corbin kind of effect. It's like on this old guy, he only does like the highlights of the character with like straight pen with that, and then everything else is this ink washes. So he has this like really wild. It's just it's masterful.
Bring it up to the camera. Let's see. Oh wait,
when I do that, I hit the whole out of focus thing.
Oh, you get out of focus.
I'll do something. I'll do something in post. I'll do something in post.
Because when when you're doing gray washes, you have solid black India ink, right? And now you could make a gray wash, which means you tint it with some water, and then you just use that, and it dries, and it has an effect on the page. Sometimes it makes the page a little wrinkly, which sucks. But then you also have the opportunity to go back over with pencil, with light pencil, hard pencil, soft pencil. You could go back with color pencil too. And then right, and then you also have charcoal, graphite. All these little tools. I mean, the thing about Corbin that was so genius is that he used airbrush, and he was able to get that in there. And this is when Mobius was doing the stippling, and the limits of like black and white, 100% black ink.
There's there's an out of focus that he's able to accomplish, and he did really artfully. And I will grab this and bring it up, but there is no black holding lines on this. Now, I believe the whole thing is just shot as a black and white plate. I don't know, back in 19, I don't know when this thing was printed. It's not going to tell me anywhere. I could find out. But there's just this beautiful, like, out of focus feeling to it, and it's a subconscious thing when you out of focus things. In other words, you understand what is important. I see this all the time. Most of the comics that you showed off that are these modern books,
Yeah.
there's no focus.
Well,
There's no focus on the
they have
page. There's no panel that's being talked to. It's line, boxes, and then digitally colored like candy corn. And boom, I made a comic, bam. And it's like, come on. Let's go a little deeper. Let's master something, and definitely the way of focusing. So,
Well, yeah, when you talk
this is
about
the man to study.
when you talk about the modern comics and the Photoshop filters, I mean that you see a lot of creators now that are using the blur filter, and like they have like some chick is kicking a guy in the face, and they blur out the leg to make it look like it's like some kind of like speed effect. Like, oh, we were shooting this with a SLR camera, and it's out of focus now. So they like literally, and I think Daniel Warren Johnson does that a lot too, where he uses like kind of like zigzaggy lines, right? Like instead of the regular.
I agree. He's great. Great. He's the one that's mastering it. He really is mastering the art form.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's really a lot to learn from him. Like as far as like the vibrations on the ground and making turning that into visuals, and but these old masters, we had the pen and ink, the black and the gray and the washes, and then you can come in with pencils. It's only going to get published in gray scale, so there is going to be a halftone line introduced to get all those little dots.
But the whole thing is that when in the 70s or 80s, when these works were being printed, that there was that complete obliteration and bleed. Like there was just printing on cheap pulp paper, as comic books were a disposable medium. This artistry that I'm yammering about is gone. But now, since these pages are owned by somebody, and then they're given a scan, and then they're given a decent printing, you're just seeing so much more in the way of the artistry and the time that was taken by this individual, that you would not have seen back in the time that the original pages were printed. Whether they were then colored by somebody else would have been another thing, or if they just stood alone in a black and white magazine, print wise, the first time they were being seen.
Yeah, the story really needs to be told when these guys come out with these reprint editions to say, how do you get there? Because when Marvel does these kind of like cheap reprint editions, you can get like $10.99 or $14.99. It's got like the first 10 X-Men or the first 10 Avengers, whatever. It's like the cheapest recoloring ever, and it actually creates a horrible product, and it's not showing the stuff in its best light. It is kind of like undersized. Like sometimes it's even smaller than a regular comic. It's a digest, So presentation matters, and that part of the story it is good for people like us, at least, to follow along. Like, what did you do to make this production?
So I am not going to go much further. There is an interview with him. That's what I'm thumbing through, because I really want people, if they see this in the wild or they have an opportunity to add it to their shopping cart online, to do so, because it might be a little hyperbolic right now, but if you're into making black and white comics, I really believe something like this is very, very necessary. Really wonderful, colored pencil, probably even grease pencil, self-portrait.
Yeah.
There's also this is one of the pictures that was always in. Well, it's creepy, but I also remember seeing it multiple times in Carlton. And then yeah, yeah, this looks like a really good
So that
interview. It
interview,
spans actually.
that
This is
interview,
actually David. This is David Spurlock interviewing him over 2 years. So for whatever reason, I'm sure there's. Like, oh look, a pull quote by Frank Thorne. Wow,
really,
this thing is just getting hotter. Al Williamson, Richard Corbin.
really.
This thing is getting great. I
Well,
do want to. I
sounds like
do
you
want
got
to
to
flip
do.
to
Sounds
one.
like you got to read that interview and then come back and fill us in.
Yep. I just want to flip to this story just so people also see. There are stories in here where he just gives us his black and white line. And if you can tell, once again, using all those hatch marks to be able to make different textures, to make different volume, to make different thing. I mean, like this is like, I don't know, this might even been like a photography, like Xeroxed and cut out and then and worked right over the top of it and added these people, maybe extra people, this guy, whatever,
Yeah.
He's, and he has that. The one thing I struggle with, and I believe it's my art school training that I'm still trying to deprogram out a little bit more, is that balance in comic books between reality and cartoon.
Right.
You have cartoons like Snoopy and Calvin and Hobbes and so on and so forth, and then you have like photorealistic rendered illustrations, fantasy art, like Boris Vallejo, Frank Frazetta, these types of things. But comic book seems to be this really safe place, if done well, where you can play with caricature, cartoony,
Yeah.
and really grab, like, this panel alone out of all of this when it comes to focus is, okay, you've got me. Who the hell are these three people?
Looks
What
like
is
Al Jaffe.
you know what I mean? It's just like, but who are these people and what? So I'm once again when you do that thumb through, your thing. So this is, I think it's 100. No, it might not be. I think it's like 79 pages or something, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
But this is just really. This is great. Oh wow! Look, a checklist compiled by Don Mangus. Oh wow! I think these are all of his works, comic wise. Wow, what a great! I wish,
Pat Boyette.
yeah, all the Pat Boyette comics. I just wish they just spent another 33 cents to make this 8.5 by 11. Because if this was 8.5 by 11, I would literally put this on the shelf next to my top 10 favorite books, and it would now become 11. Because this $7.29, and I left it for months. Like I was scared. I was like, even at $7, but this is worth. I see these things up all the time for like $15. And sometimes maybe a little less.
Yeah, it looks like they were skipping, honestly, because down at the bottom, somebody just typed that out in. Is that the Geneva font or the Chicago font? I mean, come on. Yeah, I mean, they're just.
But the insides are worth every penny.
It's
worth it. Look at that. Come on.
Good stuff.
It's great. It's great. But that's what I got, Jake.
Right. All right. Well, hopefully people saw a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Next time, I'm out of my my Newberry comic grab bags. So next time I have
Thank God.
Next time I'm going back to my Florida haul, and so it's comics that I actually saw the cover of before I bought.
God, thank God. Woo. All right. Well, that's all we have today. By the way, people, 2 big announcements on my side of the street here. The Turbo Teaser #2 is a PDF that you can download from kurtfrugal.com and cromthebarbarian.com. You can also, for $3, you can also get a print copy and have it mailed to you. Jake and I are going to be at Indie Comic Creators Con, March 15th, 2025, only on Saturday, 10 to 6 at the Southern Connecticut State University. IndieComicsCreatorCon.com for more information.
We're going. Yeah, and you could also buy you could also get a digital PDF of our Turbo Pit Fighter teaser. This is the second teaser. And here it has all this great information about the new Substack where you can get free sci-fi writing in your inbox with illustrations, and we go over topics such as Esoterra, Health Claw, the Duke, the Pleasure Bots, the Tuesday Movement, Elevena 2222, and the downfall of society. So check those out, and then come right back here for another episode of Comics That Influence. So we got the Making Turbo Pit Fighter flagship podcast where we make our comic. We have the Comics That Influence, and starting back up in just a matter of weeks is the Indie Creator Exchange for 2025, where we chat with other indie artists, writers, publishers, comic reviewers. We have retailers, everybody, you name it, and you could also be part of it too by dropping Kurt a line. So tune in next time, and then also don't forget to visit our community tabs in this YouTube channel where we have poll questions and discussions, and you could give us feedback there too.
Awesome. I'll see you next Sunday, Jake.
All right, Kurt. Bye, everybody. See you in the funny papers.